As I said, a good recording, guys, because a shitty recording is still going to give you shitty soundstage and imaging. But get a good recording, and I don't know how else to explain it. The speed of the low notes and what it does with a vocal, spread that vocal out in distance without losing any tonality, without losing any of its volume compared to the rest of the stuff that it's doing. It keeps all the volume, all the levels pretty much in check. Um, yeah, what an idiot I've been. Probably 6, 9 months I haven't had these out. I've been building speakers and listening to my OB3s, which do its own thing fantastically. But what an idiot I've been. I put these away for 6 to 9 months, and bringing them back out just was like a slap in the face. Going, what are you doing? Don't hide these in the corner. Bring them out, and the reward is fantastic. Now, getting back to antisocial, right? The reward only comes when you take the time to get that, right? And the reason I say antisocial is I got them perfect the way Magnapan had suggested, with the left speaker on the left and the right speaker on the right, right? But like anybody, I'll look around and read a few reviews and look at some videos, and I saw somebody suggesting, right, if you want to tighten up the imaging, because although I had unbelievably wide soundstage, huge depth to my soundstage, the imaging wasn't pinpoint, right? It was there, but it wasn't as good as I've had, like on the ecstatics. It wasn't as good as the ecstatics, and I'm like, really, is this what this is? Is it just going to give me wide and deep, but I can't increase the pinpoint accuracy of the imaging any better? So I read a few reviews, I looked around, and I got looking on the forums, etc. Guys were suggesting, hey, switch the speakers around, put the left on the right and the right on the left. And that brings this tweeter to the inside, right? I was listening to him always with the tweeter on the outside, so changed him around. And instantly, everything sounded wrong. Not wrong, but not as good as what I had. So I had to start again. Back, forward, in, out. Equipment messing around. Back, forward. Took about 2 days. Perfect. When I got it right, it was like the sun just shone on me. When we got this right, as again, it was another step up from what I was already in love with. Just another step up, except now the accuracy, the tonation, the articulation within that, the actual, the high resolution of these narrowed down a little more. And I say narrowed down, I didn't lose soundstage, I didn't lose the speed, but what I got was accuracy. I got better accuracy. And I'm just like, yeah, it just gets better. It just gets better, right? So when I originally got these in 22, 20, early 23, somewhere around there, I had them with the iota stuff, right? PA3, SA3, loved it. But what would happen, guys, is although those are rated for 4 ohms, to get them to play at 4 ohms with an 85 dB sensitive speaker, they need a lot of current. They need to give these speakers a lot of current. So what ends up happening on those particular pieces of equipment is they get hot. All right, if I'm playing at half volume to 2/3 volume, those things are getting hot, and you can 5 feet away, you can smell slight electrical burning smell. You get close to them, you can feel the heat. And in fact, once when we were getting a little too excited, actually one of them shut off on thermal overload. You had to wait a half hour, and then I was like, you know what? No, let's give these some more power, right? I put on the Wired for Sound SX1000Rs, huge high watt ratage on them, right? 4 ohms is over 1,000 watts per channel. Surprise, it sounded worse, guys. My SX1000Rs are every bit as good as the bel cantos that I used to listen to, and I think the bel cantos and them share the same ice power modules, although the implementation is done completely differently. Um, but these SX1000Rs will drive any cone speaker that I have better than any other piece of equipment that I have ever tried with them. Um, Clear, sharp, not sharp as in hurt you, but very sharp as in brings out all the articulation, brings out all the um, energy, it brings out speed, right? Speed in a cone, it it is very, very accurate, and it's very on off, right? It gets the maximum out of that cone without that cone getting muddy or over or floppy. It keeps that cone straight. It's the, I think they call it driver control, right? The control of the actual cone speakers. These things will just eat up and give you the absolute most out of them. And the ecstatics were a perfect example. On these, they were instantly the next level from some of my AB amplifiers. But with these guys, and I don't know if it's just these monoblocks, but I have a suspicion they need more current than these Class Ds deliver. Not only that, but the Class D shines in controlling the driver, super control of the driver. This is a big panel, so when it moves, you don't want something that's going to stop and start it in a millisecond, because it takes time for that size of a panel to move backwards and forwards. So I took it off of these SX1000Rs because I'm like, I can get better sound out of these Magnapans with my two little AB amplifiers. It wasn't a volume issue. It wasn't a definition issue. It was just simply the naturalness of it. The naturalness of the sound worked better with a Class AB amp than with a Class D. The Class D did everything fine, and it, you know, these played loud and everything perfect, but it was more, I don't want to say digitized, because that's probably not the right word, but it was more, it was less natural, less musical. And guys, the whole point of this is to try to get as close to a natural, what it should sound like. That way you don't have to think about your equipment, you just have to enjoy the music, right? So we got rid of these, and I put on a couple of years ago, well, maybe a year and a half ago, guys, I deliberately bought a Sanders Magtech amplifier, stereo amplifier. I wanted two, but budget-wise, I couldn't afford to run them as monoblocks, so I bought just a single Sanders Magtech. Huge current amplifier, deliberately designed for speakers that need more current, right? Deliberately designed for electrostats, deliberately designed for planar speakers, Magnaplanars. And guys, the increase in performance blew me away. Absolutely blew my head off. The difference going from the Iotas to the SX1000Rs was not a pleasant one. It still did everything, but it just didn't sound as natural. When I plugged the Sanders in, I got everything, and I mean everything. I don't know that there's a better synergistic combination that I've ever heard between the Magnapan 1.7s and a Sanders Magtech. Natural. Everything felt right. Didn't distract from the speed. The speed was still there, but it just was like a little more fleshed out. It was just slightly bigger, but you didn't lose the attack, you didn't lose the decay, and it kept the speed of the actual note 100% in check. They did everything the Iota stack did tenfold in natural. just natural, very linear, uh, beautiful sound. But they didn't do what the Class D amps did. They didn't try to over control it. Um, and I was blown away, guys. I moved as I said, the tweeters to the inside. I got imaging now. I got beautiful imaging. I still have 10 feet of depth, right? And that 10 feet of depth starts slightly forward, about 3 feet forward, and goes at least 7, 8 feet behind. Uh, Chesty vocals, high pitch vocals, just fantastic. Because with these tweeters on the inside, I'm getting much more articulation in that upper mid range. I'm getting much more delineation of voices versus other high pitched sounds. It's separating out. The sound stage is still huge. Uh, Guys, the Magnapans 1.7 eyes, complete shocker. There's one thing I got to tell you though. When I started doing it with the left on the left and the right on, right on the right, just like Magnapan said, with the tweeters on the outside, the imaging wasn't perfect. Soundstage was huge, speed was huge, articulation, natural, everything except perfect imaging. When I started doing that, I noticed as I moved my chair backwards, forwards, left, right, when you're not in that sweet spot, right? And the sweet spot would be ears in the middle of the panel and have the panels pointing pretty much directly at you so that the tweeter is just a little closer than the mids. When you don't have everything pinpoint perfect, you notice it, and you notice it doesn't sound as good as when you do. That, guys, makes it, in my opinion, an antisocial speaker, right? You don't get the linearity, you don't get the tonality, you don't get the naturalness at 4 or 5 places in your room or in a large area around your listening spot. You get it in an exact spot. Keep your head still. You need a Hans device, and I think that's what they call it, Hans device. Like motor racing guys use in their cars, where it holds their neck still, so when they're going around a corner at 5 Gs, it doesn't rip. Their head doesn't rip off. Um, when you find a sweet spot with this thing, you don't want to move, because when you start moving around, you notice a difference in everything you just spent all that time doing. So be aware of that, guys. Not only does it scale up where mediocre equipment makes it sound mediocre, but when you do get great equipment in the chain, um, it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, guys. I used my Freyer Plus preamp going into the MagTech, and that I can play as solid state, or I can play with the tubes. Use the tubes as going through as part of the preamp process. When I put the tubes preamp on it, and we've got new Tungsol, new old stock tubes in it. When I started listening, like to Waiting for the Siren's Call by New Order, Woodhouse by Crowded House, right? Woodface by Crowded House. When I started listening to those kind of albums, I just recently got Billy Bragg's BBC compilation. Guys, hold on. Let's see where it is. Best of Billy Bragg, 1983 to 2019. Live at the BBC. These are live recordings over 20, 30 years that he did at the BBC. When you start playing this kind of music that's well recorded, plenty of air, plenty of music with just one or two instruments and a great voice. When you start hearing that kind of stuff, when you're in that sweet spot, you don't want to be distracted. You don't want to be moving back and forth or left and right. Once you find the perfect sweet spot, it's great. If I had my couch pulled over there and 3 or 4 friends on the couch, say 3 friends, one on the left, one on the right. If I sat in either of those chairs where they're sitting, I would notice that it's not giving me 100%. They might not notice it. They might just go, yeah, it's a great big sound. It sounds pretty good. And it does, guys. The dispersion is pretty good, but it's pretty good. But the perfect sweet spot exceeds all expectations. And the problem with that is once you find it, that's where you want to be. You don't want to be sitting left or right. You don't want to be sitting forward or back. You don't want to be trying to show this to 4 or 5 friends without saying, sit here. No, don't sit here. Because if they're standing at the back of the room or walking around or sitting on the couch further back on one side, they're not going to be impressed, guys. They're just going to think, wow, that was a lot of money for those. I mean, yeah, they look cool, right? They're panel speakers, but they don't sound anything special. They don't deliver that super visceral, hard-hitting, chest pounding bass, right? Because they can't hear the articulation, the resolution, the depth of the sounds. They can't hear that from wherever they're sitting. Get them in, need to be in that sweet spot. Sweet spot, these are worth twice the money. Out of the sweet spot, they're not worth half the money. So that's why I say, my personal opinion, I bet you Magnapan probably lose half of their first-time buyers. Not because there's anything wrong with the speakers, but because I bet you half of the first-time buyers probably don't take the time to make sure that they tried everything until that magical sweet spot makes everything worthwhile. But the ones that did, the other half of the Magnapan buyers, will probably never not own a pair of Magnapans. They will probably always own a pair of Magnapans. And it's for times like this, guys, when I've been away from them for 6-9 months, I bring them back out, and I just sit there and just go, yeah, Magnapan 1.7 eyes. Can't say enough when you get it right. Take the time, do the work, enjoy the, reap the reward. Get the benefit out of these guys. They're something that is antisocial, right? You're gonna have to pull them out into the room